Hello, everybody. I'm Adam with Proof Cocktail Company, being interviewed today by Elizabeth Corsini, being asked some questions about what I do and why I do it. And let's get right into it. What I do with Proof Cocktail Company is I make real cocktails. My philosophy has always been that maybe it's entitlement. I should be able to enjoy a well-made cocktail where and when I want to. And for many years, I've been traveling in the United States, selling wine and drinking cocktails on the side. And what I always found was that unless I was at a top bar program or at a restaurant with a mixology page, I wasn't having a well-made cocktail. I could make one when I came home, but it really were those three locations that were available to me: bars, restaurants, my own home. However, as I'm sure a lot of you do, I frequent parks, pools, beaches, sometimes on a boat, sometimes, after a long hike, whatever it may be, all of these different places, times, and experiences that to me scream for, beckon for, would be bettered by, or would be numbed by, a well-made cocktail. And so I started thinking about Proof a long time ago and thinking, why didn't anybody do this yet? I mean, I'm sure most of you, as I have, put a, pint of Mad Dog 2020 peaches and cream in my back pocket and headed out to like a early evening rave somewhere by a college town. And that did the job that it was supposed to do. But I mean, it wasn't a real cocktail and it wasn't a well-made cocktail. It was an amalgame of Frankensteinian creation of malt liquor, essences, or chemical alternatives to actual fruit juice and artificial sugars or sweeteners. Nothing that I would classify as real. If you're reading the ingredients list on any of those ready to drink cocktails that have existed from then until predominantly now, it's almost like a restless leg syndrome commercial where it's talking about what you could suffer from if you consume this. What is in it is not even discernible, nor can you even pronounce it properly. So for me, I really started thinking about why had no one done this, and in doing so, what would I need to do to be able to bring to the world well-made cocktails in a can? And the reason I chose cans is that cans are hypermobile. It's also one of the reasons the federal government really doesn't like what I'm doing, because I'm allowing all of you to take your alcoholic tendencies and enjoy them and proliferate them into the world in places that you had never been allowed to before. So I went with cans because they're very economical, they're environmentally sound, they are hyper recyclable. Typically by the time you get a can, it's already been recycled 16 times and may contain already up to 80% post-consumer recycled materials. So it's a great vessel to take out into the world. But the real reason I went with cans is I'm sure a lot of you have seen at those same beaches, pools, parks, and boats that I talked about for places I like to drink, big signs that say, no glass allowed. It doesn't say no aluminum allowed, no cans allowed. It says no glass allowed. So I knew by that little kind of loophole, if I put real cocktails, well-made cocktails in cans, you and I could then take them to all these locations and enjoy them. So I started Proof Cocktail Company to make real cocktails that not only I and my friends could enjoy, but that you and your friends could enjoy at the time and the place of your choosing. And go ahead.
No, finish what you were to say, then I'll ask my next question.
I don't think I even took a breath through that.
Yeah, no, I was giving you a chance to breathe. Yeah.
No, please.
So that answers my first couple of questions, what you do and why you do it. And I think you halfway answered the third question, which is what makes you different. And I mean that in relationship to other things that are similar to what you're doing. And I know there's not that much, but why should people choose Proof over other pre-made cocktails?
Because my child needs to go to college and this is the only way to make it happen. I'm not attractive enough to do a, Mad Mike dance sequence. So this is really it, people. I could use all your help. The reason why I am a believer that Proof is the brand that people are really going to go after. And what I've heard, in blind tastings I've submitted into challenges, and from the accounts that I have gotten my feedback from, is that, as I mentioned before, what has existed from then until now, although it would do the trick, it will get you drunk and it'll give you a hangover that can last, hours to days or weeks. They're not real cocktails. And I'm sure most of you that are followers of Springboard, that like to drink great wine, craft beer, high acid ciders, and are looking to have, well-made cocktails, really want to focus on premium spirits, fresh fruit juices, and real sugars. And before Proof Cocktail Company started producing cocktails, there had not yet been a cocktail in a can that combined what we refer to as the Holy Trinity of a cocktail: premium spirits, fresh fruit juices, real sugars. And one of the reasons why is that if you think about those elements, it's very hard outside of the alcohol. If you remove that, fresh fruit juice and sugar is kind of a ticking time bomb for yeast. If you think about fermentation, wine is a mixture of, as when you drink it, a mixture of grape water, grape juice, which was, fresh fruit juice and sugar that then ferments and forms wine. So a lot of producers that had thought about doing what I've done found that they were unable to take this mixture, put it into a vessel, be it a can or a bottle, and get it to be stable long enough for it to go through the channels of production, distribution, retail sales, or restaurant sales, and you, the consumer, having it in your hand. Because that can go from 2 weeks after you produce to 12 months after that product has been produced. So what separates me is not only the fact that I'm still the only producer in the United States who makes ready-to-drink cocktails that uses exclusively fresh fruit juices, premium spirits, and real pure cane and demerara sugar simple syrups for all of their cocktails. I'm also the only producer that brought over preservation techniques from high-end wine production to the world of cocktailing. And it's not because I'm some kind of, unknown genius that has just kind of ventured onto the scene. It was simply by the nature of, I spent 20 plus years working in high-end wine, or working in the high-end wine industry. And in that industry, you have some preservation techniques that are really geared towards sustainability, as well as the preservation of a product that is very top tier. So you can imagine a lot of money has gone into the backing and understanding of these different preservation techniques. So when I started Proof Cocktail, I went to some of the local folks that I'd be sourcing ingredients from and said, this is, one or two of the different preservation techniques I'd like to bring to the game. And although they knew of them, they also knew that no one had ever tried it with regards to spirits yet, because there was never really a need. What existed before Proof was, if all the ingredients are fake, there's nothing there that can go into a fermentation later. There's nothing there that bacteria are going to want to eat. All the ingredients in this can could cause tumors to pop up on a rat in a lab somewhere in probably 3 to 6 months' time. So it's going to be completely stable because it's not real. So it was kind of just by nature that I started the company, and also happened to know some of these preservation techniques that are used for living products. And so I brought them into the cocktail world. So I'm able to get a shelf stability of a year or plus for every one of my cocktails without having to flash pasteurize. So I'm not denaturing any of the proteins there. I'm also not having to cook any of those sugars through pasteurization, which can tend to lead to kind of caramel candy flavors, which you don't always want in every cocktail you're going to have. And it allows me to use fresh fruit juices, and all of my simple syrups that I make from scratch are pure cane or demerara sugar based. Couple that with premium spirits, and you have what, in my mind's eye, is the perfect cocktail. And that's really what separates me from others, is that in all of my kind of movement throughout the industry, and when I wanted to start Proof, I wanted to create the gold standard of a cocktail. I wanted anybody anywhere in the United States, when they opened up a can of Proof, to have something that was every bit or better than what they got from their top bar, their top restaurant. Because, when you're making your orgeats, your grenadines, and your curacao from scratch, you're hard pressed to find a producer that's out there that's doing it, that's not using something artificial or fake in the manifestation and creation of their product. So you just get vibrant, bright, and alive.
I like all of that stuff. I like vibrant, bright, alive. So we're going to transition quickly to kind of your personal experience with this unusual time that we have all been living together. And is there anything surprising in a positive way that you have learned from this quarantine?
I've learned that y'all love hoarding toilet paper. I mean, it really is awe-inspiring. I had no idea that the human capacity for toilet paper hoarding was quite at this level. I've gotten to spend 2.5 months with my 2-year-old son. that I never would have had before this. So I've gotten to see a different side of this little megalomaniac that runs around with my eyes. I've learned that, I guess, having been in sales for 20 plus years of my life, I think I started taking for granted the actual human connection that we all have to one another. And once you realize you're sheltering in place, yeah, cocktails can soften the blow for a little while. But part of what made cocktailing so great for me was that I was doing it with people that I enjoyed out in the environments that I really love to be in. And it was kind of a convivial, show of humanity. And so I've learned, I guess, I've been reminded, I should say, how valuable that all is when it's kind of not taken away from you, but when you don't have the general access to it that you will then tend to take for granted. Mm. It's given me a lot of time. I've been doing Amaro trials for the upcoming Negroni. So I've finalized my Amaro recipe. I finalized the margarita recipe. So it's allowed me to really kind of stay home and play with the tinctures and the simple syrups and so forth and so on, and continue to fine tune and advance the progress of the cocktails that are to come.
Well, that kind of almost or potentially moves right into the next question, which is, do you have any hobbies that you've leaned on?
Yeah, I have a hobby called Where'd You Put It? And I don't know if any of you out there live with a 2-year-old megalomaniac, as I said earlier that I do, but I spent most of my life believing that at night when I fell asleep, garden gnomes in the general vicinity would come to life and typically steal just one, not both, but one of each pair of socks I had and disperse them out into the world. But I've come to realize that they pale in comparison to the 2-year-old IRE that I happen to have in my house. And the IRE is an acronym that I gave my son because he is an item relocation expert. And what he does is he expertly finds items that I'm going to need the next day when I'm rushing out of the house at last minute and relocating them, be it inside or outside. And so I've really had to put myself into the mind of a 2-year-old to be able to, in a very short time frame, figure out where my keys, my credit cards, my wallet, shoes, socks, underwear, toothbrush, everything could be. And I've realized that the mind of a 2-year-old is complete and unadulterated madness. But it's given me a new perspective. Outside of that, I am a big gardener, and a lot of the bounty of what I do would be in the form of jams, jellies, sauces. I do a lot of pickling. So it's given me a chance to kind of really get my hands in the dirt and do a lot of that. And since I was in Los Angeles, it was warm enough down there that everything still was growing and is growing. And it's allowed me more of the hobby of just kind of really being able to play with the different alcohols that I'll be producing and really continue to fine tune them. I had some finalized recipes for, as I mentioned, Amaros and vermouths. And once I sat down and tasted them again, I said, I could probably continue tweaking this a bit. So it's allowed me to sit down and kind of play through that hobby again and again and again. You can't see it, but my liver's in a colostomy bag on the outside of my shirt, but it's just below the Zoom level.
That's where we like things. You don't.
Mm-hmm,
pants are optional.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have found a few people have this weird experience with music, like where you listen to something over and over again at a particular time, and it becomes this weird soundtrack for time. Like I feel like I have breakup soundtracks, where I'll hear songs like, oh, that was that time with that one. So has there been any music that you've been playing more often that might be
ad nauseum, as I've been told?
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Yes. I'm a huge Bowie fan, and we have a pretty large vinyl collection. And so I've been going through a lot of the Bowie albums again and again and again. I'm a huge Herb Alpert fan. And so there's been a lot of Herb Alpert Tijuana Brass Band playing in the background of my house. But I would say probably the one album that I've been listening to the most, I'm sure to my finer half's chagrin, has been an album that I came across when I was younger, forgot about completely, and then kind of found again all of a sudden. And it's Nathaniel Merriweather's Music to Make Love to Your Old Lady by. And it's a fantastic album.
I'd have to Google that.
Yeah, the lead singer is the lead singer of Faith No More, who apparently has an incredible vocal range, not to mention long hair and boxing gloves. But it's a fantastic album. I would recommend it to anyone and everyone. And it's definitely a fait accompli. It's an album that from the first track to the last track, it's telling a tale of love and loss. and it really is just great background music. And I find that that's where I've been going pretty hard with regards to the music I've been listening to. That's definitely the album of choice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You hear it again 10 years from now, you're going to go, oh, yes.
I remember pandemic living.
Okay, so this is, I think, maybe the most loaded question in the group, which is, what is your drink? And by that, I mean, if you go to a restaurant bar or even a bar, and, you know, what's the first thing out of your mouth most of the time?
You know, the funny thing, it's an obscure cocktail for most people that, to me, it's like when you go to an Indian restaurant, you would always say, okay, I want this one specific dish because this is the canary in the coal mine for how well the cuisine is going to be, or how, you know, crafted it may be. Same thing with, you know, going to other types of restaurants. For me, if I were on a desert island and I had Wilson, the volleyball, in one hand and a cocktail in the other, and I could keep drinking that cocktail, it would be a Singapore Sling, which was kind of the precursor of the tiki craze. It's basically a tiki drink, really without, for the most part, any fresh juice added to it. So it's kind of tropical island version of a, what is it, Sex on the Beach? No. What is the one they, Long Island iced tea. You have to forgive me, I've been out in the heat for many, many hours today.
Mm-hmm.
So a Singapore Sling would be my go-to beverage of choice. It's a complicated cocktail to make. Everybody has a different recipe for it. If you guys are interested, I'm more than happy to give Elizabeth a recipe for it that I'm a big fan of, and you can try making one at home.
I love that.
I will eventually be making one in a can. However, I'm leery that I could probably drink maybe 400 or 500 gallons of it out of a 1,000-gallon production before the canning line shows up. And I'm talking from 8 p.m. until probably 6 a.m. time frame to do so.
Okay, well, you're definitely required to send that recipe, because that sounds like a drink we all need to get acquainted with. Or you get busy making it in a can. And those are all my questions. And I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time amidst the madness of sitting around at your house.
Hey, you forced me to open up a Paloma and have one of my own. I was like, day drinking, if I'm going to be forced, sure, why not?
Oh, yeah. See, and here I thought you were having iced coffee.
No, I've had enough of that. No, I appreciate the interview. It's great to share with people the passion and the love behind cocktailing, especially in an industry that's finally starting to get some legs below it. And there's a lot of great competitors that are coming out now with cocktails and cans that are really, really well made. You know, they're doing what I did over 4 or 5 years. They're still learning, and there's the trials and the tribulations as to what works and what doesn't work. And I've been helping a lot of those brands in the form of consulting, but it really is a joy to be able to share with people these things that you kind of took from books and other bars that you've had the cocktails at, always kind of fine tuning. And some of the cocktails I make have gone through 250 batch trials. And it's great because you get to distill it down and down and down until you feel that it's totally the embodiment of what it should be, and then share it with people and get to watch their reactions and see the environments. And I love on our Instagram and Facebook when people post and share about where they've enjoyed the cocktail and what they thought of it. It's great because you realize something that brings you that much joy is kind of being dispersed out into the world and doing the same for other people.
We are big fans. I think all of the sales team have all had their personal orders, you know.
Yeah. I'm only remiss that I realized I was out of samples at my own house.
Oh, that is not good.
I've been told that this can never happen again.
This can never happen again. All right. Thank you, Adam. We'll hopefully talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.